From the kitchen of the cabin, a look at the games that made us who we are in Ben and Steve's Advent Calendar.
Oh, Steve, this is what, the third day in a row?
I love coming back to the same Christmas market. The thing about men, can I generalize a bit?
Yeah, please, generalize.
I think men, most men,
yeah,
I guess I could say most straight men, especially middle-aged straight men, they like to do the same thing.
Again and again and again.
Go to the same places.
You criticize me for it.
Like, you go to the same barber.
Yeah.
What else do you do? Not much else. You go to the same barber in every other aspect of your life.
You've had the same porno mag since you were 16.
What?
I mean, you go to the same pubs.
You have the same opinions.
You know what I mean?
The same stories. Everyone's heard them. The same friends.
Times.
Like, you like the routine.
Exactly.
You like to be master of your domain, as it were, right? You don't want to stray too far from your cave.
What would you call going to the same place in Montreal for cheese curds, chips and gravy?
A poutine routine.
That's what I'd call it. That's what I'd call it, Steve.
So, here we are on December 23rd.
Boom. You're good at this date business.
And today's my day, isn't it? You're supposed to be. No.
You're
supposed to be setting the scene.
Oh,
set
that's
the
right.
scene.
I keep
you know
forgetting who the
what? You
host
should
is.
set the scene, because I would not know about this quote-unquote game if it weren't for you.
Oh, really?
And a magical night at Rudy's probably 5 years ago, where someone, you,
probably
decided late at night after many beers and some other games to whip out some
to whip it out on the table.
To whip out a white erase board for each and every player.
So there is one game that if there isn't one. Okay, I want to go back in time to the Roman ages.
Oh my God, this is my favorite time.
So, the Romans, not only did they like conquering and building roads.
They loved building roads and conquering.
Aqueducts and all that.
Aqueducts were like one of their favorite things, Ben.
Right. Do you know, they also like graffiti.
Some of them.
And the graffiti that they made back in those times has survived until the modern day, Steve.
I visited a brothel in Pompeii just this summer.
Right.
And the line to get in the brothel, by the way, the longest line in all of Pompeii.
Right. And I kissed a Roman graffiti penis on a bridge on the Hadrian's Wall walk.
You did.
So,
this photo is available for patrons at the $25 a month or higher level.
So the human phallus, I think, is the constant of graffiti from the Roman times to today.
It is, as you would say, evocative.
And if you play a round of this game and the human phallus does not crop up once, I remember once drawing a picture that was the end of Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, except the captain of the ship wasn't on a bomb, he was riding a human phallus.
Right.
If you haven't done that at least once, the game hasn't succeeded. And this game is what, Steve Alicious?
Telestrations, Ben. This game is Telestrations, if we can call it a game. And by the way, I think this is relevant to your anecdote about riding a nuclear-armed penis.
Yep.
Apparently, it's been a real discussion in the annals of power.
Okay.
How do we mark symbolically sites where we have deposited spent nuclear material?
Okay.
Fissile material.
Right.
Because that material will remain radioactive for tens of thousands of years.
Sure.
And we can imagine that future civilizations may not be able to understand, like, English, for example, like written languages of today. So what symbol could we attach to those sites to indicate danger?
Right.
And somebody actually recommended a picture of a phallus. The idea being that that would be an eternal symbol that would somehow capture the essence of
Toxicity.
pay attention.
Is this toxic masculinity?
No, nothing like that. Anyway, I picked this game to be my last entry, my last solo entry of this series, this advent calendar, because it's just like so different from everything else that we play. I wouldn't even call it a party game per se, because even party games have rules.
Sure.
This is an end of the night, throw the rules out the window, total pure essence of fun extravaganza where you want as many people as possible, like 12 people, 60 people if you can find them, and you want to go around the circle clockwise and then counterclockwise, and you want to do every conceivable inappropriate, offensive thing that you can, because you're all in it together to just like have a fucking laugh.
Exactly. And you know what's so great is that the second round of Telestrations is always better. Why? And the answer is very simple. Because you've played games with people all night and they're gamers and they're, into serious games. And you sit down and you play Telestrations.
They're not sure what they can get away with.
In the first round, they're like, oh,
and then the penises are released.
What is the strategy of this game and how do I...
Yeah, they want to know the rules.
Right.
Technically, Telestrations comes with rules.
It does.
I've never read them.
And there's always one person who goes, oh, shouldn't we play with the cards in the box? And I'm like, are you fucking insane? Choose your words.
I remember we sat down with famed board game designer Isaac Shalev at Lyriacon last year, and he actually opened the shrink-wrapped cards as if we were going to use them.
Incredible.
What I should have done was like individually tear them in half in front of him, laboriously.
Do you remember
over a half an hour?
Do you remember,
period.
like in the 70s and 80s, you would have TV shows where people would like rip the phone book in half?
Yeah.
You should have done that with the pack of cards.
I should have done that at Isaac Shalev.
Yeah, like all of them just in one clump and just looked at him in the eyes and gone, no rules for you!
I don't think famed board game designer Isaac Shalev really knew what he was in store for when he sat down to play Telestrations with us.
And I remember famed board game designer Tony Boydell was like, what the fuck are we doing with this? Because that's Tony Boydell's...
Famed board game designer Tony Boydell, the doyen, I might add.
Of English game design.
Yeah. He can draw.
Man, can he draw.
That guy can draw.
Absolutely.
And he did.
And so the wonderful thing about Telestrations is that it is the perfect end of night game. It is anarchic and unfettered and just pure fun.
If you play it with us.
Yeah.
At the €50 or higher level, we will allow you to fly yourselves into Berlin for an
Berlin Brettspielcon, and we'll play Telestrations.
We're going to have a 50-player strong Telestrations.
As long as you promise not to look at either of us in the eyes when we meet.
No eye contact. I can't deal with that.
Yeah, and so, people talk about fun being the core of games. I'm not sure that's true, because if you had a gaming diet, because I think Telestration is the quintessence of fun. But if you have a gaming diet which was just Telestration, I think you'd become very tired of the whole thing very quickly. But as an aperitif, as a digestif, after a fucking solid night of gaming, to just sit down and laugh as much as you fucking laughed that week is amazing, right?
Yeah, and I want to say that for those of you listening who think that we're not talking about a game, we're talking about an activity, it's very important to remember that it is still a game, because without rules, it isn't fun.
Right.
And the rule is, you are passed a word, you try to draw a picture of what you think that word is. Or you draw your best representation of that word or phrase. You are passed a picture, and you try to guess what that is with a word or phrase. Right. There are rules, but that's it.
Now, I subscribe to the Telestrations idea of say what you see.
Yes.
So if someone sends me a picture, I just write exactly what I see.
But it wouldn't be as fun if there wasn't some arguable semantic relationship, which you then later get to argue when, and this is like what makes this game unique.
Exactly.
At the end of Telestrations, you get to flip through the booklet
and people go, what the fuck was that? Yeah. And you're able to argue it. And
explain the narrative.
The explanations are sometimes funny, always funnier than the pictures themselves, right?
No game is like this.
No game is like
this. No
this.
game lets you tell that kind of story, a story that you didn't even contribute to most of it.
Right.
Like you set it off, and it's like what we used to call like Chinese whispers or like the telephone game, and it's hilarious every time, no matter what form that game takes. And it does have rules, but the rules are like
flexible enough,
liberating, not inhibiting.
Right.
It's just the right amount of rules for that kind of experience, which is like minimal. It is the de minimis game.
And there is a trend within hobby gamers to say, well, if this is a commercial game, it can't be any good. And I think as a heuristic, that's kind of fine, right? I think most mainstream sort of commercial games tend not to be very good. But I've also had the situation that often happens where you've played a couple of really nice games and then you say to the people you've been playing with, let's have a round of Telestrations. And you pull out the box and it looks like a mass market, supermarket game. Right?
They don't know what they're about to be hit with.
And they're like, oh, do we have to? No.
I'm going to draw stuff and think of things.
But
I can't draw. Nobody can draw.
We're playing this bullshit.
Yeah.
But by the end of the fucking game,
the second round, as you say.
Yeah, everyone is converted because it is such unalloyed joy, right?
It somehow it clicks. It locks into something in the brain that wants to experience that kind of joy, that kind of pleasure. And I think it's like the minimal rules that allow for this.
Right.
Not the total anarchic experience part, but like, I have to guess what you're fucking drawing. What the fuck is this drawing? I have no idea what this is, but I gotta come up with something. And then the next person down the line has to like turn what I just wrote in words into a picture.
And that is the best rule of the game. The one unviolable rule. You're not allowed to give hints to the person you're next to.
Yeah.
They go, what the fuck is this? And you have to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Because if you are allowed to do that, the game completely falls on its ass.
No hints, no words, ideally, on the pictures themselves. This is not a game without rules. This is fun within constraints, but the constraints disappear like constraints disappear in a beautiful user interface. This is the user interface to a fun end-of-game night experience par excellence. This is the game that I want to end this series with. And if I wanted to give this game a subtitle, if I may reference a game that I know you were very fond of, Ben, I wouldn't call it Telestrations. I would call it Through the Pages.
Thank you for listening to this show and indulging our overweening nostalgia. If you would like to support the show, you can do that by going to patreon.com/5G4D. And we both wish you a very Merry Christmas.